Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody to pay-per-view week of Cageside with John Morgan, or shall I say viral video interview John Morgan. If you haven't seen, go back, check out his one-on-one exclusive with Dana White that dropped Sunday. You can still see it getting major clicks, views, up to like 500 comments on it. Something outrageous like that. Nice. But with that being said, some tremendously good material in that interview. Go check it out. But this week, we are going to be talking about none other than the highly anticipated Sphere show, which obviously the Sphere is taking top billing even over, yes, the Sugar show. So that just means something spectacular is in the works. To help me break everything down, let's bring in the man himself. He wears that blue polo all the time, but not today. John Morgan, what's up, brother?
Dude, I'm so fired up, man. You know, as always, man, when it's pay-per-view fight week, we get pumped up because, you know, there's going to be some titles on the line. The big stars are coming out for the pay-per-view. So we always get hyped, right? But, man, I have been looking forward to this show at the Sphere since the first day I walked in, before the UFC ever even talked about potentially doing a show. I was like, man, I hope they do something here someday. Then they announced it, and for months we've been building up to it. I don't know that I've been this excited about a show. And the fights, we'll talk about the fights, of course. They're spectacular. They're amazing. But just the venue itself, man, I am fired up for this week.
Yeah, so am I, basically. And I got even more fired up based on your interview with Dana White, because then he started, outlining that, like, hey, it took 4 months just to get the lighting right because it's going to be on television. So craziness. Everybody, go check it out. John Morgan, I don't know what your thing. Can you drop a link into this for that? I mean, I'm sure you could.
I'll put it right there. We'll make that happen. Right
there. We go.
Here.
Yeah, there we go. Check out his interview, because Dana really dives deep into like what it's really taking and whether it'll even work or not. He was like, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. We'll see Saturday.
I love that.
Which is
I love
awesome.
that.
But before we get into the Sphere show, there were two events this past weekend, and they both need to be talked about. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but first I want to talk about Bellator in San Diego. And the reason I want to talk about it, Usman Nurmagomedov retains his lightweight world title, and he comfortably beat it. He didn't look spectacular, and it didn't do anything overly amazing, but Alexander Shibli. But it begs the question for me. Where does Usman rank at lightweight in the world? Now, I think if we look at things comfortably, we can say that Islam is number one.
Yes.
I think we're comfortable at saying that.
I am.
But then when you get into Arman, Charles, Justin, Dustin, Usman, I think that there could be heavily debated, and it's a shame we can't really figure it out. But if you're going to tell me that Arman Sayukin is light years ahead of Usman Nurmagomedov, I'm going to tell you you're crazy. I think he could legitimately be 2 or 3 in the world right now. But that's
100%.
Apples and oranges, though. You know what I mean?
It's really difficult to do, right, when you're comparing people outside of the UFC. And it's not that they're not talented. Sometimes people try to write off people that aren't in the UFC. You know, you're a hardcore fan. That's not true. There's great fighters in every organization. The problem is, because it would boil down to how you wanted to weigh it, right? I mean, we talk about rankings and who's number one and all that, but are we talking about skill level, or are we talking about who they've beat? And people outside of the UFC are always going to struggle to have that resume, right? Just because the UFC's roster is so deep. I mean, I know as a voter on the UFC's ranking panel, I was just looking at this past week, and I believe the UFC's light heavyweight division has like 107 guys on the roster right now, just at lightweight. So you think about all those names and all those matchups. I know, it's incredible. Meanwhile, you look at Usman Nurmagomedov at Bellator, he doesn't have nearly as many names to beat. Now, he's done a great job. I mean, Alexander Shevchenko, no joke. I mean, Brent Premis, Benson Henderson, Patricky Pitbull, Chris Gonzalez. These are legitimate names, but it's not necessarily the familiar names that you have on the UFC roster. So you're not able.
In which, by the way, in all those fights, he hasn't really been tested.
No, not at all. Even in this one, like you said, didn't necessarily look spectacular. Didn't put the exclamation point on it that maybe you would have liked to see. But it was against a guy who, oh, by the way, was coming in at 24-3 on his career, who was pretty dang good himself. So to answer your question, listen, I think Usman Nurmagomedov could conceivably compete with anybody in the UFC's lightweight division. I think he could conceivably fight anybody and beat anybody. I mean, obviously, they know in the room how him and Islam get down. But I bet it's some amazing training sessions. But I think anybody else in the division, he could absolutely be. So he could conceivably be the second best lightweight in the world right now. In fact, they might never tell us. He might be actually the best lightweight in the world. Right. We'll just never hear about it. Habib knows. Habib knows.
Yeah. Uncle Habib knows in that. But when you look at the UFC lightweight rankings, like I said, Islam number 1, Arman number 2, Charles, Justin, Dustin, 3, 4, 5, 6, right?
Yep.
I would be hard pressed to say any of those that I would pick. I would pick them over Usman right now. Now, not to say that, and I'm not saying that I'm picking Usman over them either.
Right.
But the pedigree in which, Usman comes from, the team meaning, and then, we know the wrestling chops and the jiu-jitsu chops that team has, but he's one of those guys that stands above them all with his striking. And that's a scary combination. So when I just look at it, can he strike with Arman and grapple with Arman? Yes.
Yes.
Can he strike and grapple with Charles? Yes. Can he strike with Justin? Yes. Can he strike with Dustin? Yes. He can do all that with them. And then I think his grappling is better than Justin. His grappling is better than Dustin. So it's such this fantasy booking that I want to see come to reality. And do we have any idea about his contract?
It's a good question. I have not checked in on his contract lately. I mean, I know Bellator's happy to have him there. Obviously, he's the reigning champion. But, yeah, I bet he would never come over as long as Islam is the reigning champion at 155 pounds. But Islam has talked about moving up to 170, right? And if he moves up to 170 and that contract runs out over at Bellator, because I'm telling you right now, exactly what you said. Like, the fights with Arman Sarukin and Charles Oliveira would be sick, incredible fights. And he's capable of winning them. And, yeah, I like him over Justin and Dustin and Dan Hooker and Michael Chandler. And that's no disrespect to those guys. I just feel like his grappling is a little bit better, cut above. So I don't think he'll come over as long as Islam's holding the belt. But if Islam's not, because he goes up to 170 or he gets beat or he walks away or whatever, maybe there's a chance that Usman comes over. 26. He's 26, bro. He's 26 years old. Time's on his side.
He's only 20. I mean, I remember we talked about that maybe last time. He was fighting, and I was like, how old is he? But that shocks me that he's only that, because he, like you said, it seems like his name has been around. It didn't seem like he came into this in the past year.
Right. No, he's been at it for a while. You know what I mean? And
so we can arguably say he's not at his peak yet.
No, normally you think about like 27, 28, 29, so he's kind of entering that time right now. That's usually prime time for these guys in mixed martial arts. And yeah, to just be entering that right now. And boy, you look at Islam at 32, like I said, turning 33 next month, by the way. Man, he's talked about moving up to 170. Who knows how much longer he wants to keep competing. Obviously, Habib walked away very much in his prime. Islam could potentially do the same. Keep your eye on Usman Nurmagomedov, man. I would not put it out of the realm possibility that he makes the move over to the UFC at some point.
How do the kids make money streaming these days off of Twitch and things of that nature? Like if team, Eagle MMA put a Twitch account, like to be able to live stream their training sessions.
Yep.
Sign me up.
I'm grabbing my wallet right now. I'm pulling out my credit card because I need to put in my sign-up information because I'm signing up right away, man. That room is so good. And what's amazing is you talk to anybody that is in the room with them, right? Not their team, but like, when they say like go to New Jersey or something and they're in a gym because there's a fight coming up. The people from the gym they go work out in are blown away by just how quality they are and how seriously they take things, right? Especially when Habib is running practice. They always talk about that they come in with a purpose. And there's no, we're wrapping our hands and we're talking a little bit and we're just, you do a couple reps and then you're telling some jokes and talking about what you're doing this weekend and all. No. You come in there with a purpose, and you go in there, and it's work the entire time. So, man, I would love to see those training sessions and just seeing those guys going together, because those spars are something to watch.
Yeah, and then we could have a clearer picture of this lightweight debate. But with that being said, I just needed to touch base because this kid is so damn good.
He is that good.
Damn good.
He could absolutely compete for UFC lightweight gold right now. He's that good. So, yeah, definitely keep your eye on him. If you're not watching him at Bellator, tune in when he fights, and don't be surprised if maybe he makes that jump sometime in the future. And just know you've got a real one.
Sean Brady, Gilbert Burns this past weekend at the Apex. You were there for it. Brady comfortably, a little bit surprising to me. Listen, I knew that both of these guys' ground game it is next level good.
Yep.
What surprised me in the later rounds was the ease that Brady started taking him down with.
Yeah.
And what didn't surprise me was the sweeping ability and the scramble ability of Gilbert Burns once it happened. But that surprised me. But then also what surprised me, and like I said, we don't need to get too in depth because we got 306 to talk about. But Brady's striking leveled up in this fight.
I was a little bit worried for Sean Brady. And obviously, Sean Brady came through the CFSC system. He trains with a lot of guys that are still with us. And, we're in those same circles a lot. So I want to see good things for him. But I'm also a big fan of Gilbert Burns. I know how dang good he is. And I'm like you. I was kind of hoping it would be a grappling match because, I thought we'd really get to see the skills. But ultimately, they're both so high level. I think they kind of negated each other, right? And neither one of them really got an advantage. Like you said, those late takedowns, but not a whole lot with them because Gilbert Burns was able to get back. But you're 100% right. Sean Brady's striking has evolved, man. I mean, he really looked comfortable and slick out there. And, we had some gas tank issues. There's some questions, again, we just hadn't seen it. Is he going to be out there in round 4 and round 5? Because Gilbert Burns will. And Sean Brady was just, a step ahead a little bit the whole time. So great performance for Sean Brady. Gilbert looked very, very disappointed afterwards. I didn't think he was
sluggish the whole night. It looked like he never got out of first gear. He usually throws with reckless abandon, and he just didn't throw punches this fight. For whatever reason, he just didn't throw punches.
That's exactly what I took out of it as well. And I'm like, is that just, not that he's an old man, but at 38 years old, he's a lifetime of training martial arts and competitions, high-level grappling to go along with the MMA as well. So
IBJJF world champion.
Exactly, right? So, and that's obviously at the highest level, and that is taxing on your body. So is it a situation where Gilbert just had an off night? Or is it a situation where, at 38 years old, and look, I had talked to him ahead of time. We saw that interview on Grind City Media. He said, look, kind of one last run, making one last run at it. And he knew his days were kind of numbered. Was this a sign that, man, the body's just not quite where it was a few years ago? Or was it simply an off night? I don't know. But I took what you did out of it as well. Just looked a little bit flat. And Sean Brady was there late and was able to just be a little bit faster, a little bit quicker on each exchange.
All things can be equal, or all things can be right. I think that Brady is that good, though. So yes. I think, I watched the Chael Sonnen interview, and this was a while ago, a long time ago. And this quote always stuck in my head. He says, past their prime is fake. It's just you weren't good enough to beat the next generation.
Wow. I like that.
And so I think Gilbert Burns still is that good. I still think he is that talented. But when that next generation comes, that next generation is always a level up. Just historically speaking, it's a level up. I mean, we see it with Belal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns. Let's go down, and it's just the waves keep coming, and you get better with every generation. So I think that's honestly more of the case than a huge backstep with Gilbert Burns.
I tend to agree with that as well. I mean, it's the way the sport is. I mean, the sport is still so young, right? I mean, it's crazy how young the development of mixed martial arts in its current form really is. And people are getting better each time because they're watching the previous generation. They're learning the techniques in the cage. They're learning the techniques in training. They're learning the nutrition. They're learning everything. They're just getting better. And Sean is that good. And he came in with a little chip on his shoulder as well. You look at him at media day and he was like, man, people that doubted me, I'm still tired of that. By the way, he came in 16-1, and the one loss is to the current UFC welterweight champion. I mean, come on, man! That's not bad. So, big win for Sean Brady, and he's talking about big fights next. And I mean, he's going to get him. So, I'm anxious to see where he falls in the rankings update, and anxious to see what he gets next, because it's got to be a big fight.
All righty, let's get into it. The Riyadh Season UFC 306 from not T-Mobile, but the Sphere in Las Vegas, Nevada. Watch the Dana White interview. You'll start learning the tech. The 12 hours of rendering? 12 days. 12 days of rendering. Do you know what rendering is, John?
Oh, you laughed out of that one too. I was like, yes, sir, Mr. White. I have rendered a video or two in my day. That one cracked me up a little bit. I'm glad you caught that.
Yeah. 12 days of rendering, which is crazy. And I couldn't even tell you the specs and the technology behind that. But I think we're out of our depth if we're going to start talking about what it's going to look like in there and this, that, and the other. We're fight fans. We break down fights. We talk about the pluses, the minuses, the X and the Y's, the zigs and the zags. I don't want to talk about the tech. I don't want to talk about the potentiality of what it could look like in there and what experience it's going to give us fans. I want to talk about fights.
I love
down to talk about fights.
I'm down to talk about this fight. As excited as I am about the Sphere, and I am, because I think it's going to be a game changer. I think it's going to be a special night. I'm equally excited about the lineup that we have as well. So I love that you want to break that down. We can talk next week about how amazing it was or how amazing it wasn't. But this week we can talk about these fights because they look good on paper.
The Sugar Show comes to the Sphere in Las Vegas, Nevada this Saturday to take on the number one contender, a guy who looks unbeatable, truth be told, Merab Dvalishvili. And this is both fighters are sitting at minus money. You're not getting odds on either one of these guys. O'Malley coming in at minus 118 favorite with Merab on the comeback at minus 102, I believe it was. Let me take a look back. Minus 102, which means bettors lay off this one. Let's just lay off right off the bat.
It's because it's so weird. I mean, right? They both have their path to victory, and they're each so different, right? Like it's one of those fights that when it's over, everybody's going to be like, of course that's what happened, but you don't really know. I mean, that is a pick'em, man, and I think that just goes to show the quality of this matchup.
The fight. I always love talking about the fights within the fight, right? And let's say you're a little more humble than I am. I have notoriously said on the show that me and Mr. Morgan are very good. Damn near, I say, one of the best shows out there in kind of breaking down the fights of what to expect. If A, then B. If C, then D. I want to attempt to do that in this fight, but it's so contrastingly different. Even more than when Aljamain, we always said if Aljamain gets him to the ground, it's a long day for O'Malley. Still the same. We can say that the same, but the path to the ground doesn't have to be the same. I really think that Merab is content, like with what he did to Jose Aldo, putting you just against the cage. And when you weaponize your cardio and you weaponize, your attrition, that is going to speak volumes well into the fight. So with all that being said, I think that's just any Tom, Dick, and Harry can say that, what I just said, and predict to a level of certainty. Merab has no problem putting him against the fence and just holding him there. We've seen it do that to Jose Aldo. Here is the question, and I think the only question in this fight. Is the length of O'Malley going to overshadow and give Merab Dvalishvili fits? It did to Aljamain Sterling. It has to nearly every single opponent that O'Malley has faced. Now, there's a difference between using your length as an advantage and then using your length to sniper one shot, one kill people, right? He used his length to an advantage with, Chito Vera. Chito couldn't even get off on him. And Chito always gets stronger as the fights go on. He never got stronger. The question that I have is, will O'Malley be able to make enough of an impact very early with that length to deter? You don't need to completely like throttle his intake, but Merab every time doesn't care about getting hit coming in. Right. Can a threat come at him early enough that now he does? And even that 1 second of like, I have to dip before I come in rather than just coming straight in, that's going to be the entire fight for me.
That's game over right there. If he does that's a beautiful way to frame the question of this fight, because that's exactly what it is, right? Merab Dvalishvili, I mean, the machine for a reason, nonstop cardio, right? Like, there are very few people in this world that can operate at full speed for 25 minutes and have no concern whatsoever. He's one of them, right? And so I think that's, if you're leaning in the direction of Merab Dvalishvili, that's what you're going to point to, right? This guy is going to press forward and he's never going to stop. But you just said it. If he can get touched, he's been touched. We've seen him get hit throughout his career, right? But nobody hit him the way that Sean O'Malley can hit him. You know what I mean? So Sean O'Malley can really touch him up. And as you said, maybe even if Sean O'Malley can't knock him out, maybe if he can't hurt him tremendously, but he can at least cause him to hesitate. Because if you're thinking Dvalishvili is going to win, you're assuming there will never be a moment of hesitation throughout. He's just going to bull rush forward. I was actually thinking about it this morning. My son was playing PlayStation not too long ago, playing Red Dead Redemption, right? And there's a scene where you're out there in the wilderness and you get attacked by a bear. And basically, you just got to shoot a whole lot and you got to shoot in the right spot. And if you shoot in the right spot, you kill the bear. If not, the bear gets you. And I'm like, this is what that fight is, right? You got a sniper. You got a dude that's got all the weapons. He's got the ammunition, but he's got to land him. And if he does and he can keep that bear at bay, he'll win. If not, and that bear gets to him and that bear picks him up and throws him on the ground and does it over and over in round 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to be a very difficult night. So I love what you said. I think you framed that just right, because if there's that hesitation, it's game over for Merab. And Sean has the ability to do that. So that's why I just love this fight tremendously. And by the way, Sean on his back, it's not as if he's on his back. He's absolutely stuck there and he has no submission skills. He's not able to get back to his feet. But there's not a game plan that him and Tim Welch are putting together that's like, hey, man, let's work from our back. That's where we'll be most successful at, right? They're most successful on the feet. There may be plan B if they get stuck there, but that's not plan A. So I love this fight. I absolutely love this fight.
Merab Dvalishvili has 4 losses, right? He has been stopped once. Now, I say stopped loosely because it was a technical submission. And for us nerds, meaning me and John Morgan, most people don't know what a technical submission is. So you have a physical submission. A physical submission is tapping out. That's why when I was taught by Big John McCarthy, he was always getting pissed. I'm like, because you'd have to go to the commission table. And
you dropped this name right here, dog. Let me get this for you. You dropped this name.
When you go to protocol is you go to the table, the commission table, and you tell them the official stoppage. The official stoppage was tap by guillotine. And so I would do that in my mock with him, and he's like, tap out is a clothing brand. Stop saying tap out. It is a physical submission. He physically submitted. He went like this to physically show you that he wanted out of the fight. That is a physical submission. Now, a technical submission, I already knew this one. I didn't need Big John to tell me this one. A technical submission is either A, he didn't tap and the bone broke in an arm, or guess what? In a guillotine, which Merab did lose, he went to sleep. That would be a technical submission because technically you submitted because you went to sleep.
But if you remember, that was the controversy. He popped up immediately. It was like, I wasn't asleep. But it had already been called. And it was tough to see. It was one of those face downs. Really tough one.
So I say all that to say this is Merab has not been stopped due to
tapping out. That dude ain't tapping out.
But tapping out. But I mean, where are we going to go with if we're going to say like O'Malley's path to victory, it's knocking him out or, TKOing him. But if we look at his 3 other losses, they were all decisions, which I think there could be a common thread in there. I can't get to the fight to the ground. I am neutralized to a degree. And I think that is O'Malley's path to victory. But he has to get that respect in the first 2 minutes of round number 1, because Merab, even against like Henry Cejudo, it's not like he just blitzkrieged him, right? Kind of like did this, did that, popped around. In that moment, if O'Malley can slip and rip and doesn't have to knock him out, but does have to rattle him, then that is going to pay huge dividends down the line, because Merab has to think about that while closing the distance. Or he could do what he did against Cejudo and pick somebody up and then go talk to Mark Zuckerberg, because he has no fear about anything.
It's so true, right? Because it's that little bit of hesitation. That's the millimeter of difference, the millisecond of difference that you need to get in the right position to move out of the way, right? So you're 100% right with that. And it's funny because, you know, and listen, I do believe that O'Malley is as elite level of a striker as there is in mixed martial arts, man. His speed, his precision, it's incredible. But it is funny, man. I'm thinking, because I said it. Look, I just said it. He can strike in a way that maybe Dvalishvili hasn't been clipped before. But let's not forget, Dvalishvili has wins over Petr Yan, Jose Aldo, Marlon Moraes. Heck, I'll even throw John Dotson in there earlier. I mean, that dude's got speed and power as well. I mean, but Yan, Aldo,
what don't they have though?
The length. They don't have the length. All of them have much different body types. They're pinpoint strikers, but much different body types for sure.
Here's one thing that I want to say that I don't ever think gets talked about enough, is what a smart fighter O'Malley is. His fighting IQ is extremely high. And I always take this back to when he lost to Chito Vera in number 1, right? His first loss. He was giving interviews about saying, like, if this were like, listen, this was a freak accident. He is never capable of beating me. And he started breaking down the fight. I was doing this to be able to do that. I was here, and it was already going this way. And he was stylistically and statistically breaking it down. And I remember thinking to myself, this dude is such an analytically smart fighter, and he's going to need that in this fight. I don't think you can just put, firepower against firepower and beat a Merab Dvalishvili. I don't. But I do think that if you are, it's no secret what Merab is going to do. It's no secret whatsoever. But if you set little traps, circle off, and you at some point are just keeping Merab guessing, and that's what he has to do. He has to keep him guessing the entire fight. And then when he's guessing and hesitating, you crack him. And then you just do that. And can you do that for the majority of every round? Because I don't think you're stopping Merab. But I do think, and even though he's the favorite, I think most people, fans, don't think O'Malley's going to win this fight. I just don't think that. I think he has the ability to do that. And I think it's a slight probability that he can, and it's not because of the attribute, or not because of the technical proficiencies he has. I'm literally saying that because I think O'Malley is that smart of a fighter.
He's an incredibly intelligent guy. I think a lot of people try to write him off because of, the hair and the tattoos and the style that he has. But that's all calculated in itself. You know what I mean? He knew that he had to make a memorable character out of himself. You know what I'm saying? So even that was calculated. The Sean O'Malley grappling, man, I know that it was 5 years ago at this point, but when he was in that quintet tournament, it impressed the heck out of me. He submitted Takanori Gomi. He got submitted by Hector Lombard, but that's a freak show matchup, right? That's part of what quintet was about. So you get these weird matchups of guys that would never face off against each other because they're different types. And then he went to a draw with Gilbert Melendez. I mean, that's not bad. You know what I mean? So we've seen a little bit of his skills. He's got grappling. So again, not a fish out of water if he's on his back, has the ability to get back to his feet, has the ability to be a submission threat as well. But it's that length and that striking that makes him so good. It's interesting because he was a dog. A lot of money has come in on him, and I understand. I think a lot of that is probably casual money of just fans that like Sean O'Malley, that like the guy, that want to back their guy. But I do think you're right. I think there's a lot of people that favor the grappling and the cardio of Merab Dvalishvili. I think I'm one, but I mean, I'm leaning that way towards Merab Dvalishvili, but I understand how dangerous Sean O'Malley is and what his path to victory is, and it is absolutely there. And I mean, look, he's been in the spotlight for a while, too. We haven't seen Merab under this kind of a spotlight. I mean, nobody's competed in the sphere. We don't know how that's going to change anything, what kind of environment that does, but just the enormity of the event where everything is built around you. Sean's been dealing with that for a while. Now, I don't think Merab is the kind of guy that's going to crack under that type of moment, under that type of spotlight. He doesn't strike me that way, but you just never know, right? You just never know until you make that walk in those circumstances, how you react. So, man, I'm fired up for this fight, man. It's so competitive. It's going to be so, and there's going to be that. I mean, when those guys are standing in the cage, you know, and we're looking this way and we're looking that way, and are you ready? I mean, the tension in there, because we both know what they want to do. And I think that's what's going to be exciting about it, right? When you know guys' style so well, every little interaction they have along your way, you're going to know who won that exchange because you know both what they're trying to accomplish. I am thrilled for this fight, man. This is going to be a big one.
O'Malley is tough to take down.
Yes.
And I think he's going to be I think a lot of people look at him as a superstar and not this dog fighter. I
agree.
I think he's a dog fighter. I do. He's shown it time and time again. And I think he's crafty enough not to be held against cage. Like, to me, that Jose Aldo was content with being held on the cage.
Right.
I don't think O'Malley. I think he's crafty enough to get off the cage. I think he's good enough to stave off the takedown. Here's where I think a rinse and repeat is going to happen. And I think that, like I said last week, this has the potential to be an extremely boring fight.
Could.
Or it can be absolutely spectacular.
Absolutely.
One of the two. I think O'Malley is going to dictate the striking. He circles and changes direction so fast. I think he's going to do that, and it's going to give Merab fits. I really do. And I think he's going to be able to pump that jab, and when he switches stance, he's going to be able to crack him, and he's going to be able to circle, and then Merab is going to get his hands on him. He's going to put him against the fence at about the 2-minute mark, and then O'Malley may get off or may get taken down. But I honestly think that that O'Malley did enough in those first 3 minutes to maybe win the round. And I can see a scenario where that happens for 5 straight rounds.
Sounds like you're leaning AndStill.
I have been on the Merab train since this fight got announced. There's no way O'Malley's beating Merab. He's too much of a killer. And then I just, like I said, like I do, I get ready. I watch past fights, and I'm just like, we don't give O'Malley the credit, even though this guy is a global superstar in this sport. We don't, as crazy as this sounds, we don't give him the credit for the great fighter that he really is. He's shown that he's a dog. We know that he's intelligent. We know he cracks. We know he has length. We know he moves well, but we don't give him the credit. I'm giving him the credit on this show. I think he can and will get it done in that rinse and repeat. Mark my words. Walk this back. Either you're going to say, Eric, you're an idiot and you don't know anything you're talking about, or it's either going to be one of the two. It's either I spot on, got it 100% correct, or Merab runs right through him. But I think I'm correct in this, and I think that's what he's going to do. I think he's going to take the center of the cage. He's going to circle a bunch, because you can't just run through somebody when somebody's circling a lot, and especially switching stance. And we know he can throw punches and kicks while switching stance, while moving backwards. I just think he's that good of a fighter that he's going to out-good fight him, not beat him. I don't think he's going to beat him up, or I don't think he's going to do anything. I just think he's that good of a fighter that he can out-fight him for a win.
I love it, man. We're going to know pretty early on, aren't we? We're going to see those first exchange. That's why I say the tension early on, it's going to be like, oh, of course. And that's why I say when this fight is over, everybody's going to look back and be like, yeah, of course that's the way it went down. But you don't know, because it's very well. I'm still leaning towards Merab, but I'm having those same visions and thoughts that you are as we get closer to this fight. Because I think you and I, for the moment,
this was up until this weekend. I thought Merab was going to run through him up until yesterday morning when I started rewatching fights. And I was just like, every fight I watch, I'm like, dude, the kid's that good. He is that good.
He is that good. And that's why I'm so intrigued by this. I'm still leaning towards Merab. I mean, Merab should be 12-0 in the UFC right now. You know, I mean, 2 controversial losses to start his career, 10 in a row. I think he's an outlier. I think he's just such a specialist in what he does in terms of his cardio, in terms of his grappling, in terms of his forward movement, the fact that he won't slow down. I mean, there aren't humans that can do what he does, you know what I mean, and never have a step of hesitation whatsoever. He is special. But if O'Malley touches him, if O'Malley hurts him, if O'Malley clips him, and O'Malley can, right? Because he's so slick in his movement. He's smart, as you said. Him and Tim Welch have broken down every entry that Merab has. I guarantee you they've identified patterns, because even in that wild chaos aggression that Merab has, you know there's patterns to the way he has entries and to the way he approaches putting you up against the cage with those takedowns, etc. So he absolutely can, man. So I'm leaning Merab, but I'm with you, man. I feel like as we get closer, I haven't made that shift over yet like you have, but I think you're so spot on when you think that people undervalue how good Sean O'Malley is as a fighter. They look at the persona, they look at the character, they look at the antics, and they think it's that guy, and they don't actually give him credit for how dang good he is as a fighter. So I am intrigued by this, man. This is a great fight.
People think the size of O'Malley is going to be a detriment to him with Merab taking him down. He's got a long body. He could get underneath him. It's pretty easy. And I'm saying a lot of times that's the case. Yep. I don't think it's the case here, because why? When you're against a fence, when you are a lot taller and you have that length like this, guess what? Your legs spread a lot wider. It's harder to get those arm slashes together. Now, is it easier to maybe dip under and get somebody to a cage? Yes, 100% it is. Okay. But this is where I go back to. I'm studying in all aspects of this. But it's not easier to do it when somebody's going like this. I just knocked my mic off. I even broke it right now. There we go. All right. But when somebody...
That's the danger that Sean O'Malley presents right there. He will just break your equipment.
He's giving me fits right now. But when somebody is circling, it's hard to duck under a punch and close the distance into somebody's body. So when I just look at it, each person has one solid way to win.
And hey, and let's talk about in those clinches as well, too, Sean's dangers with the knees. And when you talk about the taller guy, you talk about the ability to touch the chin with the knee a lot easier, nasty with the elbow. So you think about, man, him needing to sprawl against the fence and maybe drop some elbows in. So there's going to be opportunities. I don't think he's going to be in a purely defensive posture when he's in those defensive grappling. I mean, look, Sean will find himself in some defensive grappling situations. That's just going to happen. Every round. He's not going to go out there and one-shot KO him. I do not believe this is going to be Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo. Maybe it will, but I don't think it will be. So there will be defensive grappling.
What would happen to O'Malley, if...
I mean, it's play the Snoop clip over and over, right?
He would be Conor McGregor at that point, right? Would 100%. He surpass Conor McGregor if that happened? Maybe not, because it's not a whole country backing. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe.
It's tough to say. He'd be there. I mean, Conor was special, man. Just everything all together, the whole thing of it. I mean, the journey, the ride that it was amazing, man. So it's tough to compare anybody to Conor, but man, he'd be one of the biggest stars in the company. There's no question about him. He's already a big star, but if he goes out there and does something like that, and listen, man, this event, these clips are going to be played everywhere. The visual of what is going to be presented inside the Sphere, people that don't normally talk about mixed martial arts, don't normally talk about combat sports, are going to be talking about it on Monday morning. So if you parlay that into Sean O'Malley having some kind of devastating highlight reel finish, I mean, rocket ship, baby, straight up.
All right, so we are leaning. We're not picking winners. We're just leaning. I'm leaning to O'Malley, which was a dramatic shift than even 24 hours ago at this point. And you are leaning Merab.
That's right.
Okay. Damn, I'm excited for this fight. But like I said, man, it's no secret what each person wants to do. Now, let's go to, I think just an amazing show. Is it played out? Are the people not talking about this fight enough? Alexa Grasso, champion, versus Valentina Shevchenko. Are we not talking about this fight enough?
I think so. I think people are not talking about it enough. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, Sean O'Malley touched on the fact that he felt like this fear was the star of the show, and he voiced some frustration in that. But I think even as we get closer, he's understanding at why that is. I mean, this environment is special. Mm-hmm. But the second aspect of it is that this is the third fight between these two, and the last one ended in a draw. And so it was a rather anticlimactic ending. And so I think because we've seen the matchup happen 2 times in relatively short time, because it didn't end with an exclamation point, it ended with a question mark. It ended in
the controversy 10-8.
100%. That 10-8 changes everything. So I think there's a lot of reasons.
It was a whole calendar year ago.
Yep. You had the time off in between. You had the Ultimate Fighter in between. So it is a great fight, though. These are two high-level mixed martial artists. Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko are as good as it gets at flyweight, and they've proven to be incredible stylistic matchups for each other, right? I mean, we've seen the history, right? We've seen almost 9 complete rounds between them, and it turns out they're really, really close in talent. So I'm intrigued by this one as well, and I'm actually curious to see kind of what your thoughts are on this, because again, we have 9 rounds to go back to. There's a whole lot of tape that we can watch. We know how these two match up, right? We know that Alexa Grasso has incredible boxing. We know that Valentina Shevchenko, probably a little bit better in the kicking department as well, but she's got great striking. We've seen that Valentina Shevchenko has the wrestling advantage, but Alexa Grasso has tightened up her jiu-jitsu very well, where she's dangerous. So if she's working on the ground, she can get back to her
face
feet.
Crank.
She got the face crank. And how about that? And how about the fact that, when they had that, man, they went back and immediately showed the receipts, bro. They showed the training video. They were like, we were getting ready for that. We knew that was going to happen. We knew that she spun a lot, that she did. So they've broken her down. Francisco Grasso is nominated for a World MMA Award as Coach of the Year. I mean, so we know it's like, but I'm anxious to hear what your take is on this fight, because I'm struggling with something. And I don't know if you want me to lay that out first or wait until you tell me what you're thinking, but I'm a little bit torn on this one. So you tell me if you want to give it out there first, you want to hear what my concern is.
I don't want your concern, hearing your concern to influence my decision right now. I want to hear it, and then maybe it will. I think that Valentina Shevchenko is one of the greats. I would put greatness in a marquee with her on there.
Yes.
So I don't bet against greatness. Okay. With that being said, she lost fight number 1 to, I think, a wildly overlooked Grasso.
Right.
It shocked everybody.
Nobody saw Grasso winning by that way, especially. Fight number 2, Shevchenko was winning the fight. Shevchenko theoretically got robbed of regaining her title because of the 10-8 Chris Bell round. I think we could debate whether it was a 10-8. Most people are going to say it's not. He is a phenomenal judge. Criteria was herky-jerky. They even dialed it in a little more after that, okay? So this is not saying I'm going to criticize him, because he is a phenomenal mind, especially in this game, in mixed martial arts. But if it was not for that 10-8, we would be saying the rubber match, 1-1, going into 3 tomorrow. So I'm going to look at patterns in history, and the history says that Shevchenko, I think, overlooked her, didn't take that into account, got caught. Fight number 2, it's what we expected, a great fight, but Shevchenko was winning until she got caught in that same position and didn't get submitted. Got out of it. Now, was a 10-8 because of it, but got out of it. So what minor improvement did she make in this matchup in particular is what makes me believe that we are going to be saying AndNew Valentina Shevchenko, even though she has complained about fighting on Mexican Independence Day and an unfair advantage for her. I love what you just laid out there. I love what you laid out there, and I love that our minds are thinking the same on this, because I feel exactly the same way. Even in the fight that she lost, Valentina Shevchenko had won round 2 and round 3 on all 3 cards. She was up 2-1 going into the 4th when she got submitted. So if you look at the number of rounds that she's won more of the rounds along the way. She doesn't have a win to show for it, but she's actually won more of the rounds along the way. But there is my concern, right? because I'm thinking the same way. But now am I just thinking, well, Valentina's won all the rounds, but guess who's got the results? And that's Alexa Grasso. Alexa just finds a way. She hangs around, she finds a way.
It's that
Round
Mexican
4.
fighting spirit, man.
Right? And so it's funny to me. So, at first I was thinking Valentina, and I'm with you as well. Shevchenko, one of the greatest of all time. You know what I mean? She's on your pound for pound GOAT list. She has to be in female mixed martial arts. She's one of the greatest ever. And so you don't go against greatness. She's 0-1-1 in these matchups, but a loss that nobody ever saw coming. Nobody said Grasso by submission. Nobody. And she's one judge's card away. And 1 point, not even a card, I don't even need to see a switch in the round. I just needed it to go from 10-8 to 10-9. And like you said, she's got the belt. So for that reason, I think Valentina Shevchenko, and oh, by the way, the odds once again, basically a pick 'em right here. But for that reason, I feel like Shevchenko is the pick to make here. But Grasso just finds a way. So I'm torn once again on which way to lean. I think I'm leaning towards Shevchenko. But how do I pick a result? This is a third fight between these two women. Why am I going to pick a result that I have not seen happen yet? So I'm intrigued by this one. But me and you are right in the same line. And oh, by the way, and I love the fact that you point out Shevchenko lost in a position, which I'll point out again, nobody ever saw coming. I bet her camp and team didn't ever see that coming. So for round 2 between these two, or fight 2 between these, she makes those improvements, right? You don't think that she spent Valentina Shevchenko is like militaristic in her training approach, right? She doesn't party. She's not out there. She travels a lot, but she travels a lot so she can go train somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane. That's all she does. Is she's a martial artist. She is a martial artist. She's been working to get better. Not that Grasso hasn't. Of course she has. I'm torn on this one, brother. I'm torn on this one. I think Shevchenko's the play, but Grasso just finds a way every time they're together. And will she be buoyed by, this amazing Noche UFC and all the love letter to Mexico that it'll be? Will there be a little something, a little bit of that national pride, of that responsibility that'll will her to find something special again? Oh, it's another great stylistic matchup. They're incredibly well matched on the feet. Grasso's grappling has gotten ordnance better throughout her time in the UFC. I think Shevchenko's still probably the better wrestler, but again, she's gotten submitted and she's shown that she can't necessarily keep it there at all times.
How fast can Alexa Grasso take her back, though?
Oh my God, so quick, man. I'm loving this fight, man. When you have two title fights,
kickboxing versus boxing matchup, and then when we get on the ground, I guess it's a wild card there now.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I love it, man. I'm so fired up, brother. And there's other great fights on there. I mean, we're just talking about 2 title fights, and again,
and nobody has plus minus money. It's all minus money in both.
Two UFC championship fights that are essentially pick'ems. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. It's the best mixed martial artists in the world, and me and you. And I am more humble than you, sir. I will say, but I know we know our. I will say that I've watched a lot of fights. That this is all I've done for a long time. And when I see 2 athletes and I can't pick, because usually I'm like, listen, fighter A has a chance, but come on, let's be honest. Fighter B is really the one that's probably going to win this fight. I can't do that here. And either one of these title fights, I can't do that. And that's when I'm excited. When that tension is like, whoo, how's this going to go? So I love it, man. And then you add in the fact that it's going to be the Sphere, and it is going to be over the top. I said it in that interview, and we'll just plug the interview one more time. I said it in the interview, and it's what I've come to realize is that anybody that has been inside the Sphere, that has gone to a concert there, that has seen a show there, knows this thing is off the charts insane, and it's going to be amazing. People that haven't, they don't know, you know what I mean? And so they're like, how much could a venue really change things? I'm telling you, this is not just a venue. It will change everything. I mean, have you seen the clips that are going around? There's a place called Cosm. There's one in Los Angeles and there's one in Dallas now. And these clips are going around of like college football games that they've been showing. It's like a bar, restaurant, but it's such a virtual reality thing that it makes you feel like you're sitting in the stadium. These clips have been going around on social media, and it is cool. I actually got to see the preview in Salt Lake City before they built the one in Los Angeles, now the one in Dallas, and I can't wait to go see a fight here or a game there. But it's amazing. If you've seen these clips, you know what I'm talking about. It makes you think you're in the stadium. This is that on steroids, on PEDs. This is another level on top of that. And the challenge will be, I think us in the building on Saturday are going to have no problem telling you how amazing the experience is. I want to see how they display it on TV. Dana kind of answered that. He's like, look, I got these, Emmy award-winning directors, et cetera. They're shooting it. We've got all this stuff. We got 4 production trucks. And they got the technological skills they need. They got the equipment they need, the people they need. But how do they make you feel like I know it's going to feel in that building that night? We're gonna find out on Saturday, man.
You lucky son of a bitch.
Oh, bro, I am fired up, man.
John Morgan is one lucky son of a bitch for being in there.
This month is awesome, man. I got this week. Then I'm going to call fights next week in Florida, and then I'm calling fights the following week in North Dakota, man. The rest of September,
I'll be with you in North Dakota.
I'm looking forward to that one, man. It's a journey out there. It's man. I don't know if you spent much time out there. I've only been there one other time, and we did.
I was there with you.
It's gorgeous. Yes, that's the only other time you've been there. It's gorgeous out there, wasn't it? I mean, that country out there is amazing. So I'm looking forward to that, and we'll certainly talk about that in a couple weeks. But yeah, I love this month, and I'm fired up for this week. I'm telling you, if you're doubting the Sphere, if you're one of those people that's like, I'm sick of hearing about the Sphere, I'm sick of the UFC telling me how special this event is going to be. I'm telling you, just go in with an open mind on Saturday night. I think you're going to walk away going, damn, they did something pretty cool.
I have to talk about the Ortega Diego Lopes fight and how absurd it is to me that Brian Ortega is coming in at a plus 145 underdog with Diego Lopes as a minus 175 favorite. That shocks me. Brian Ortega to me is the complete package. He can strike, he can grapple, he is that good. And I know Ortega, I know Diego Lopes is the next guy, or being touted that way, and he's the white hot baby face. But Brian Ortega, I think, has the ability to stifle this hype train. And I don't say hype train lightly because, Lopez is real deal. But I just think Brian Ortega and a 1.5 dog.
Here's what's really interesting about this, and I'm glad you said something. And obviously, this fight's incredible. I mean, we thought we were going to get to see the fight in June, and how excited were we to see it then, right? And obviously, you had that craziness that all happened around it. And Dan Ige swooped in. It was an amazing story, right? But if you go back to
what was the reason that he pulled out again?
Illness basically is what it boiled down to. He fell ill. It was a difficult weight cut for him. Originally it was going to be 45. Then they said we'll make 55, and so he went to 55. So it was, you got to think it was weight cut related. Now, that part does scare me a little bit. Like,
it's back at 45.
It's back at 45, and it's been 2 months. So, if it was simply weight cut related, 2 months later shouldn't be a big deal. But you never know how the body's going to react, right? I mean,
right.
We know that weight cutting is not a healthy thing to put your body through.
No.
It's an unfortunate reality of the sport. So we don't know how he's going to bounce back. So that does scare me a little bit. But I am really, really intrigued in talking about the wagering odds in this one, right? In their initial matchup at UFC 303, Brian Ortega actually opened as a minus 125 favorite. Now he closed as a plus 125 dog. This time he opened as the plus 120 dog, and it's kind of moving up in that direction. So it's like even going up higher. So it's interesting to me. I wish I knew more about why people. I mean, obviously the public sentiment has gone from Ortega being that guy to Lopez being that guy. Now, is it because of the weight cut issue? Is it because of the quick turnaround? Is it because of what Lopez did to Dan Ige? I mean, certainly sentiment has switched here. So I love this fight. I loved it the first time it was supposed to happen. I love it that it's happening here. And I'm with you, man. I think Brian Ortega is a guy that people try to count out, man, all too often in his career, man. I think they've tried to write him off over and over and over again. And he shows, it's about having that dog in you, man. He's got that dog.
He's just cool as shit, man.
It's super cool, man. He's just a cool cat. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the jiu-jitsu is off the charts. But listen, a lot of respect for Diego Lopes as well. The slow road to the UFC. Now that he's got it, he's making the most of it. I mean, the number of checks this man has cashed in a short amount of time just absolutely changed his life. Training with the Grasso team as well. So, I mean, you're getting ready alongside a champion. You're both building to this event. I mean, so it's a phenomenal fight. It's a spectacular fight. But the one thing that does concern me, and I think maybe that's can be read into the odds a little bit, is I do wonder, man, bad weight cut last time. What happened there? How does the body react this time around? And I mean, I guess you kind of touched on it with your Chael Sonnen quote earlier, right? I mean, Brian Ortega, I don't know if I'm trying to say that, he's the old generation at 33 years old, but Diego Lopes is 29. Maybe he's the younger man. Maybe he's in his prime right now. So it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be a great fight as well.
I think it will be a great fight. The way we've seen Diego Lopes win in the UFC, minus his UFC debut and minus the Dan Ige fight, was he just steamrolled. Came in, reckless abandon, steamrolled. I just don't think you can do that. I don't think you're going to do that with strikes on Ortega, and you're not going to be able to submit him like that early. I think this is a very, very tough matchup for Diego Lopes. And that's why I'm not saying that he's not going to win. I'm just saying at a plus 145, this is a pick'em to me.
I love it. I agree with you, because this is what we were talking about the first matchup, right? I mean, we look at Gavin Tucker, Pat Sabatini, Sadiq Youssef, guys that we all have a lot of respect for. All three of those very talented martial artists. But as you said, Diego Lopes kind of steamrolled through the three of them. You could come back and say, all right, well, now I've seen him go 3 rounds with Dan Ige, and we know Dan Ige is a stud. He's a perennial contender. He's as durable as it gets. Went 3 rounds with him. That's Dan Ige literally getting up off a massage table
and winning the 3rd round.
Right? I mean, so
or proceed winning the 3rd round.
No, absolutely. No, he did. He absolutely did. On the judges' scorecards, he did, which I thought coming out of that, I thought that's something that Dan Ige can really, be proud of. So. Yeah, man, there's some real question marks in this. I'm a little bit surprised. I think this is another case of people just trying to write off Brian Ortega and writing, the hotness of Diego Lopes. And I get that, man. Yeah, as you should. The guy has done some amazing things in a very short time in his career. But man, count out T-City at your own risk, man.
And I think unless you're a diehard, really, you don't ride with T-City because the inactivities that he's had.
Yep.
So I think that has a lot to do with, I think fan perception isn't there on him like it would be with, me and you. You know what I mean?
Well, and look, I mean, if you look at it, yeah, and you're absolutely right. If we go all the way back to 2018, if we go back to, 5.5 years, almost a full 6 years, because it was December 2018, Ortega is just 2-3 in that time. So he's not fighting very frequently, and he's got several losses along the way. Now, of course, take a little closer look. Those losses are to Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, and Yair Rodriguez. I mean, they're pretty damn good fights, but this dude has been battle tested. Like, there's nothing that Diego Lopes is going to do that Brian Ortega is just going to go back to the corner after 5 minutes and go, I've never seen that before. I don't know what he's doing in there. Like,
right. He ran at me, swinging punches.
Yeah, like, I don't know how to react to what he's doing in there. I've never seen this before. Like, T-City has seen it, but we're going to have some answers. And, hey, if Diego Lopes does go out there and do something special tonight, because you got to give Diego Lopes some credit too. I mean, again, Ige deserves a lot of credit for the last fight, but so does Diego Lopes, going from 45 to 55, if not more, to honestly. A new opponent. I mean, come on, he deserves. So
he had everything to lose,
100%.
Everything except everything.
The paycheck. And if he goes out there and he delivers on this, oh boy, now you start. Now you start talking about, okay, I see where the ceiling is, and it's championship tier.
Yeah. Well, as you can tell, me and the one-on-one interviewing GOAT, John Morgan, are tremendously excited about UFC 306 Inside the Sphere this Saturday night from Las Vegas. And that son of a gun is going to be on press row inside of it.
Here's what's crazy. We don't even know where press row is. Nobody even knows where we're going to be. Am I going to be? Look, here's what's it. Am I going to be cage side? Don't know. Do I even want to be cage side? Probably not, to be honest with you. You probably want to be somewhere where you can see the screen and the effects and all that's going along with it. So I have no idea where I'm going to be sitting. I have no idea. There's talks of maybe like rotating.
But it's only it's an amphitheater, right? It's not 360.
Right. Correct. Yeah, it's an amphitheater is a great way to put it. But then the screen goes fully round and like it's bigger than your field of vision. Like no matter where you're sitting, like it's man, you can't describe it until you've been in there. My kid said it's like virtual reality, but without wearing a VR helmet or without wearing a VR glass. Like it's like they came out. It's on my Twitter timeline. If anybody hasn't seen it, they just came out with a movie of the U2 performances called VU2. And there was a preview of it that was last week, and I retweeted a lady here that does like I think PR and communication stuff, but she was at the opening for it, and she pans down and it looks like U2 is playing. The screen resolution is so high and so detailed that it gives like a 3D effect. And even though U2's not there, it feels like you're actually watching the band play live. And then the sound is amazing. And I don't know, man. They're going to have 10
What if they just were punking us and there's really no fights? It's all
virtual.
Virtual fights.
That'd be great. That'd be amazing. Look, and I'm fine. This is just, man, we are fans of, I mean, as you said, we're fans of the fights. We love breaking down the matchups, but this is special. And I've been to legitimately hundreds of UFC events. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of UFC events, not to mention all the other mixed martial arts cards I've gone to from other organizations, the ones I've worked at, etc. There has been nothing like this ever before. There may or may not be anything like this ever again. And so I'm fired up for Saturday night, man. I think you're going to want to tune in and watch.
I think that's how we put the cap on this episode. But with that being said, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.